Okay, good evening, all. The Town of Los Gatos Planning Commission meeting of October 23, 2024 is now called to order. Let's begin with the roll. As I say your name, please indicate your presence by saying here. Vice Chair Thomas.
Here.
Commissioner Barnett.
Here.
Commissioner Burnett.
Here.
Commissioner Hanson.
Here.
And I am here as well. And Commissioner Barnett, can I ask you to, Burnett, I'm sorry, ask you to lead us in the pledge for this evening?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. As the Planning Commission conducts this meeting this evening, we encourage active participation by the public, which is essential to the important work of the Planning Commission. Public input is very much welcomed and is always considered. The public's participation can occur in several ways. First, during the verbal communications portion of our meeting, an individual may speak on any topic that is not on the agenda for tonight's meeting. And second, during the hearing tonight on an agenda item, any member of the public may speak about that item. You'll be advised of the times when you wish to speak on those items. If you wish to address the Commission tonight during either the verbal communications time or when we consider an agenda item, please raise your hand in the Zoom app, or for those of you that are in the audience, there's a yellow card that you can fill up and hand to staff. Please print your name clearly, or if you are speaking anonymously, just write down your initials. When you speak, I ask that you come up to the microphone and speak directly into it. It's important because this meeting is being recorded. Also, when you are called to speak, please state your name and address for the record, or indicate that you are speaking anonymously. In fairness to all who wish to speak at this meeting, it is necessary for all public comments to be limited to 3 minutes. So we'll begin tonight with the verbal communications portion of our agenda, and that is any member of the public may speak on any matter that is not our agenda. So let's begin with Zoom. Do we have anybody on Zoom who wishes to be heard on verbal communications?
There are no hands raised.
Thank you so much. And I have no speaker cards. Anybody in the public wish to be heard on verbal communications? Seeing none, we'll then move to the consent calendar. Tonight, we have one item on the consent calendar being the approval of the minutes of our meeting of October 9, 2024. Before the Planning Commission acts on the consent calendar, any member of the Commission may request that this item be removed. Commissioners, are there any such requests? Yes, Commissioner Martin.
I have a proposed amendment to the October 23, 2024 minutes, which is regarding the minutes of 10/9/24, October 9th. On item 1, it indicates that I abstained even though I was the maker of the motion. So I think the abstention should be Commissioner Burnett.
Very good. Seeing no objection, with that one change, Commissioners, can I see by show of hands those who will, actually, let's maybe back up a step. With that change in mind, do I have a motion to accept the consent calendar as presented and amended? Yes, Vice Chair.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you.
The changes.
Thank you. A second. Commissioner Burnett.
I second the motion.
Thank you. I have a first and a second. Any further comments? Okay, Commissioners, by a show of hands, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate. And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Okay, moving to the public hearings portion of our calendar, we have a single item, item number 2, requesting approval for subdivision of one lot into 2 lots and a general plan amendment to change the land use designation for parcel A from public to low-density residential on property zoned R-110 for property located at 220 Gatos Road, APN 527-25005. Environmental review is pending. Subdivision application M-24-011 and general plan amendment application GP-24-002. The property owner, Union School District, applicant Robson Homes, LLC. Commissioners, by a show of hands, can I see those who have visited the property? Thank you so much. And are there any disclosures? Seeing none. Mr. Mullen, will you be presenting staff report this evening?
Yes, thank you and good evening. Staff is requesting that the Planning Commission continue the item to a date uncertain to allow additional time for the environmental review to be completed. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Okay. Actually, as long as we're here, I understand that we are not going to address the merits specifically tonight, and this matter will likely be continued to a date uncertain. But while I have staff here, I did have two questions. So the matter that is before us, unlike some other matters we've seen, this only involves the subdivision and the general plan amendment, not the actual development. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. And question for town attorney specifically. I noticed we have public comment on this one, and they mentioned a couple of pieces of legislation, which I don't think we've encountered specifically before, the Surplus Land Act and the Naylor Act. Without discussing their application to this case specifically, could you give us a brief outline of what those schemes entail?
Sure. So the Naylor Act applies to school districts, and it's codified in the Education Code. And the goal of it is to prioritize public agencies having access to land that has previously been used as a playground, playing field, or for open space use. And so it requires that before a property is sold, that the property be offered to any public agencies in the area that might want to continue its use as a playground or open space. And then the Surplus Lands Act is also a state law, and that's codified in the government code, and that applies to the town as well as school districts. And it requires that property be offered to low-income housing developers and park districts before it's sold, to give them a chance to make an offer. There are a number of exceptions to that requirement. For instance, if a parcel of land is very small, the entity can make a finding that it's exempt surplus land, and the State Department of Housing and Community Development will approve that determination. And then another exemption would be when property is being exchanged for land that's located elsewhere. And so both of these things apply prior to the sale of property. Do you have any other questions on that?
No, that's exactly what I was looking
Yeah.
for. Commissioner Hanson, yes.
I actually had a question adding on to that. I thought that we had heard this before and that the subdivision part of this was completed. So it's still saying subdivision, and because we had a hearing and there was discussion, we had people talking, and that it was decided to put I thought it was decided to put divide the land up in between public and then the proposed housing development that Robson Homes is going to do. And we heard this at General Plan Committee as well as here at Planning Commission, I thought. So I'm unclear about why the subdivision thing is still on the table, although I think there's other issues that need to be discussed, as well as when there's actually a development application.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I'm not sure if this has been to the Planning Commission before, in all honesty. I know that what's carried with this project are two applications, the general plan amendment and the subdivision into two parcels on this lot.
Maybe perhaps it was just the general plan committee.
I'm getting some clarification that the
plan.
general plan committee hasn't heard this either.
I'm sure that we did.
For this particular proposal, or in the past, I guess would be the clarification.
The specifics of the subdivision application was to take the parcel and leave part of it for public, and then the rest would be, targeted for ultimately residential use.
Yeah, we did. Was it the full planning commission? No. I don't think that it must have not been.
It's
but
not familiar
no,
to
it
me.
was because we were here.
It's not familiar to me,
Oh,
but we'd
but
be
that
happy
would've
to
been
provide that
general.
information in the staff
Yeah.
report
Okay.
with a full history, if it has been to the GPC or the PC prior to this
Yeah.
application or even under this application, when we return for full consideration.
Okay.
Yeah, Vice Chair.
Thank you. My additional question would just be if, Mr. Mullen, you could explain what happens, if we issue, obviously, if we issue this continuance to a date uncertain, what are the next steps for the town, and then when might we see this again?
Thank you for that question. As it would be continued to a date uncertain, if approved tonight, staff would initiate and continue to work with the applicant on the environmental review and go through that process. There's different avenues being explored at this time, so there's not a process that's defined. Once that environmental review's complete and we have the application complete and ready for hearing, we will renotice and send out new noticing and publish new noticing since it is being continued to a date uncertain, and then return for full consideration, including the environmental review.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Commissioners, any further questions for staff? Seeing none, I'll open the public portion of this matter, but before doing so, I'd like to provide a caveat. It's been the long-standing rule of the Planning Commission that each participant gets to address the commission once per matter. And that is true whether a matter is considered all in one evening or over several meetings. So we're here and ready and willing to accept comments this evening on this matter. But if you choose to speak, you will be precluded from speaking at a subsequent meeting on this matter. So I just wanted to give that caveat before we begin. So with that understood, is there anybody in chambers who wishes to be heard on matter number 2? Seeing none, is there anybody on Zoom?
They do not have their hand raised.
Thank you so much. Okay, then we have the recommendation from staff to continue the matter until a date uncertain. Commissioners, do I have a motion in that regard from one of, yes, Commissioner Hanson.
I move that we continue this matter to a date uncertain.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Commissioner Burnett.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. I have first and second. Any comments, commissioners? Then by a show of hand, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate. And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. All right, that will close then. And I'm sorry, there's no appeal, right? I would imagine, Mr. Mullen?
That's correct.
Thank you so much. Then we'll turn to the report of the Community Development Office. Mr. Mullen, do you have a report for us?
Thank you. I have nothing to report this evening.
Wonderful, thank you. Then we'll move to subcommittee reports. In addition to their service on the Planning Commission, each commissioner serves on various committees and subcommittees. It's my understanding that since our last meeting, only the Historic Preservation Committee has met and did have a lengthy meeting just today. So if I can have a report on that, that would be great.
Yes, we did have a meeting tonight, and we had 6 items that came before us. 3 items were approved, 2 were returning to our committee, and there was 1 denial of a home to be removed from the historic housing inventory. And that completes my report.
Thank you so much. And just a question for staff on that. I know HPC has been overly burdened as of late. Is that going to be the trend going forward, or do we have any ideas?
It's hard to predict. It seems that agendas typically get heavier at the end of the year. The next meeting looks to be full, and there were some items that were continued tonight. So staff's going to negotiate how to get everything to move forward to the next meeting. And we have in the past looked for dates for special meetings when we get overloaded, but we try to manage that. But it's hard to foresee if this trend is going to continue.
Okay, thanks for that. And to my committee or my planning commissioners who are part of the HPC, thank you so much for your efforts. I know it's been tough sledding, so I thank you for your efforts. Well, that concludes tonight's meeting. I want to again thank my commissioners for their attendance. My understanding, just so we can all plan accordingly, is our November meeting, unlike some of our recent meetings, is heavily scheduled. It will be a longer session. So rest up, and we'll see everybody in November. Thank you so much. Meeting is adjourned. Yeah. No, we only have one.